Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers from the state capitol here at the legislature. I'm joined today by co-host Scott Craigie. Who's coming up today?
Actually, we have Carole Vilardo, who's probably the strongest public advocate for the taxpayers. She's been around forever, and she's a curmudgeon, and she tells it like it is, straight from the shoulder. And she's got something to say.
She does, and of course she started when she was like 9 years old.
Oh, that's right.
Coming up on the Pundit panel today, Ray Bacon, Paul Mozen, and Gary Milliken. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
Here at the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, water resources come from fresh, clean groundwater, approved by state permits. The water is pumped from wells to million-gallon storage tanks and then distributed to TRI companies. Another amenity is our investment in a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant. This disposal system converts waste to clean water for industrial applications. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevada.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
Coverage of Nevada Newsmakers from the state legislature in Carson City is brought to you by the Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association. As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
So, who do you use for workers' comp?
Pro Group Management.
Ah, I've heard some good things about them.
Oh, you bet. Employee background checks, safety training, claim seminars. Oh, and here's the great part. If you have an issue, they work for you, not against you.
Sounds perfect. And expensive.
Well, that's the best part. They saved me 30%. I've heard they've saved others 50%.
Works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This is a special edition of Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by Carole Vilardo, president of the Nevada Taxpayers Association, along with Scott Craigie here. Let's start out, first of all, with the rebate, and now this idea of having to pay income taxes on this. What do you make of this?
Well, from the get-go, it's problematic. It's problematic because the rebate check is supposed to be issued by DMV. DMV doesn't have the capability of issuing the check, so we've got a couple of $1 million that will have to be spent so DMV can do this. A lot of controversy on it, obviously, because you've got some legislators saying, well, you know, somebody has 3 cars, why should they get $900 if they're new? We need to get the money to somebody, you know, who really needs it. And majority of people feel it should be a credit, but the governor is evidently quite adamant on having a check written. So this is going to play out real interesting. Everybody's, you know, it's like, okay, where are we going from here?
Well, you know what I thought was very interesting? I was at a Sparks Rotary luncheon the other day and making a speech, and I did an informal, non-scientific poll. I said, how many of you expect to get the rebate? And about 3 hands went up. I said, how many of you want the rebate? And everybody's hand went up.
Yes.
You know, setting logistics aside, given that there was a surplus that went beyond expectations, is there a good reason for there to be a rebate? Whether this is the right format or not?
Yeah, I think so. I really do. But not exactly the way it's being done, okay? And you said irrespective of format. I think that we have got some issues relative to the taxes that were passed last year that should be changed, which in effect would put a rebate on those taxes.
For example?
I think, well, for example, the business license fee for a lot of very small businesses turned out to be problematic. It was originally suggested at $25 annually, then it went to $50, and all of a sudden it became $100 to budget. And you have some real small people out there because of the way it was written. And how many people it captured? Reduce it to $50, make it easier, less burdensome. You've got some technical changes that need to be made that are going to cost money. For instance, the bill was written so that if you had one rental, this is the bill from last session, you now became a business owner and had to get a business license fee. Get a business license, pay the $100. We need to change that to 4 or more units, which is what's standard in statute. Making that change of 3 units is going to cost money. Allow the change to be made.
So step back and just look at the budget. The budget has become probably the biggest divider of the caucuses and all of the various folks that are in the legislature right now. It looks as though maybe Speaker Perkins he obviously is out talking about the rebate, while some of the other members of his leadership are really not committed to the rebate. They believe that there's some spending patterns that are necessary. The governor has said he will veto anything that doesn't have the rebate. First of all, are we at a logjam? Secondly, do you think there'll be a special session that results out of all of these tough positions?
I am sorry you even asked me that question. I don't want to answer that. I don't want to think about a special session. I actually don't think there would be a special session. And the reason being, we have a number of legislators running for other office. And I don't think that would bode well.
Well, what you're saying then is that the governor is going to get his rebate.
Well, I think there'll be a compromise reached, Scott. You know, you were sitting in the executive branch. You know how last-minute compromises work. Are we at a logjam right now? No, I don't think so. We still have time. Tell me that on maybe the 26th of May that we haven't closed these budgets, and that we're not hearing some concrete, except for some minor details, discussion about how we're effectuating whatever the rebate or the credit or something is, a return of surplus. Then I'm going to tell you we're in a logjam. But right now, there's still plenty of time to work that out.
Let me ask you this. Last session, we didn't have, we believed, enough money. This session, we've got a lot more money. What's the difference in the way the session runs because of that?
Same problems. You know, when you didn't have enough money, it was interesting. You had, from my perspective, because of the issues we deal with, you had very specific ideas coming into that session, because everybody had been prepared from the 2001 session for the fact that there would be a need for more money. You had those that agreed, those that didn't. There was questions on the amount of money. It was all out on the table. This session is almost worse. We have,
having money is worse than not having money.
It almost is, because look at all the posturing going on. Look at trying to figure out how you intelligently spend the money. And the biggest problem I'm having, and this year we have the luxury of looking at it a little more in global terms, the budget is not a transparent document. Okay? If I look at the budget and I'm not looking to micromanage, you can't have this fact, so you should have 2. If I ask for a vacancy report, which was required by the bill last session, that's one of the things we asked for. Vacancy report does not make any sense because I can't match it against overtime because that's not shown. If I look at the budget, I see FTE positions. I don't know how those vacancies fit into those FTEs.
I'm sorry, you have to explain FTE very quickly.
I'm sorry, full-time employees. Okay. You know, because government is a service business, and so payroll, compensation is one of the largest items in the budget. And that's why I say we've been looking at some global issues, and it's very difficult to figure out. So all we can say is, okay, how many do you have? What is it in relationship to overtime? Are they positions you need to fill, or should you be getting rid of the positions? Could we start with a budget that makes some sense, that we know what we're dealing with?
Okay, let's take a break. Make some sense? Okay, we'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this timeout.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
If you own a business and want to maximize your company's potential, join the Retail Association of Nevada. Our membership benefits include the Nevada Retail Network Self-Insured Group, providing workers' compensation coverage that can lower your rates. That savings can go directly to your bottom line. We are an effective pro-business organization that lobbies on behalf of our business members. The Retail Association of Nevada, protecting Nevada businesses for 35 years.
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us cleaner and safer than ever before. To learn more about America's natural resources, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
Reno's best dining values are all at one casino, the Pepper Mill. You can enjoy great savings on our popular specials. Pepper Mill's coffee shop offers daily lunch specials, low-carb dining, and all your favorite comfort foods. You'll find sensational lunch specials featuring Reno's freshest seafood, sushi, pasta, and more at Oceano. And early bird specials at Reno's Premier Steakhouse and Romanza Ristorante Italiano. The best values are at the Pepper Mill. Where are you dining?
Your best value in sight is here for you to see. From frames to lenses to eye exams, you're covered A to Z. Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
Davis Optical Centers, with 2 locations in Reno and Sparks.
Davis Optical, your best value in sight.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
Back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're talking to Carole Vilardo, who's the president of the Nevada Taxpayers Association.
You know, one of the most interesting reports that the Taxpayers Association puts out every year is this legislative report that shows the amount of money that was included in the executive budget, which is what the governor asks for and says is absolutely needed, and the amount of money asked for by all the other players. I mean, school districts, legislators.
Everybody.
And so the governor asked for $259 million, $260 million rounding it. And everybody else, plus the governor's budget, is $2.7 billion, which is a lot more.
That's why I said it's more difficult to deal with money, although that hasn't stopped them in years. We haven't had money. Those become the projects that are near and dear to somebody's heart. A lot of them are meritorious. We generally refer to them otherwise as pork. Because they weren't put in. They are the supplementals. And by the way, for point of clarification, on the governor's budget, those are supplemental appropriations that have to be done by bill that are not part of the overall budget.
Is that true of the other number as well?
Oh, Lord, no. Well, they're supplementals.
Yes, that's what I meant.
They're somebody's supplementals,
apples
yes.
and apples.
They are apples and, well, not quite, because what you have in some of the executive budget appropriations is you're restoring ending fund balances.
Have you ever answered a question, yes or no?
No. They're just now.
Terry Hickman was on the program yesterday, and one of his points was that when the state was going through bad times, the teachers got 2% and 2%. He said now the state's going through good times, they're being offered 2% and 2%, and that isn't right. You want to weigh in on that?
Sure. They're going to go back to their individual districts and they'll negotiate whatever they can get. It has not been uncommon to even have a 2% or 0 if you go back to the 80s, and then find a school district that negotiated a contract
But
with 6%.
that philosophy forces them to take money that has not been appropriated.
That is absolutely
for salary
true.
and take it out of program.
Right.
And every time that we use that as the reason to keep that budget too low, we end up sapping actual services in order to keep our teaching corps.
To me, the solution to that is you don't allow individual district bargaining. The state sets the rate, and you put it at 5%, you put it at whatever, and that's what it is. But unfortunately, I think you've got, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? If you give the 5 or 6%, it doesn't stop a district from negotiating 8, 9, or 10%. And then it gets built into that budget for the request the following year. So how do you straighten it out? The only way I can see to straighten that out is you set the level at the state and you don't bargain the wages at the local level.
And actually, on their side of the argument, some would say that if a reasonable amount could be appropriated for those increases, there wouldn't be the need for them to go through these major struggles and take money out of those program budgets.
You can say that. I'm not sure I would, because I can remember a couple of years in the 80s where the state did appropriate considerably more than 2%. And I know what was negotiated on some of the districts, and it still went over. And, so what do? Is there a perfect answer? No, absolutely not. You're dealing with the spending of money that goes to philosophy. Do you get a better product because you spend more money? Or do you reward because you are an individual who's creating a better product?
But aren't we deluding ourselves a little bit? I mean, on K-12 education, I mean, we do step up for K-12 education, but not at the level some others are. But we have many programs in Nevada. We are, for example, among the lowest in Medicaid. We have, I think there's only one other state that's somewhat lower than us. We don't have any medically needy program. I mean, we don't really take care of people the way most other states do.
How are you counting the proportion of expenditure to Medicaid? You're counting it the same way everybody else does on a per capita basis.
I'm looking at it on the services that are available and the ones that are not available, and there are a lot that are not.
We provide more optional services on Medicaid than anybody else. $210 million worth of what we provide in the Medicaid budget is not required to be provided. They're optional. I don't fault that, but if you're going to do that, then I think you need to means test them. You can't have everybody with the same priority. Medicaid needs this, mental health needs this, education needs this, without looking at the way you are providing and using the money. And at one point, we need to sit down and say, okay, yes, I'll increase Medicaid here, but if I'm in optional benefits, dental or eyeglasses, and we do tend to have a wealthier population, as I know you know, because that is the reason we're so low on federal funds coming into the state, because so much of the federal funds that would normally come in are based upon how much of your population is below poverty level. And we're not sitting there. We have a very low population. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. But going back to Medicaid, if you take Medicaid per recipient, we are quite high in what we spend.
And that's where
that's a problem with numbers.
And that's where we got to leave it. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers. Thanks, Carole, as always, right after this timeout.
This is Nevada Newsmakers. Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The Resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life. That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seemed to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? Yeah, they do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, They saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me. Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by employer links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and social security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're joined by our Power Pundit panel. Ray Bacon is with us. He's the Executive Director of the Nevada Manufacturers Association. Paul Mozen, a political activist and a healthcare consultant. And his first time on the program, welcome, Gary Milliken with GEM Consulting. Scott, it sounded to me like you weren't done with the issues that Carole was talking about.
Actually, I wasn't, and it's really hard not to put you, when you're a moderator, you're supposed to ask questions and stay neutral. I had some somewhat different opinions, but Carole is always, she speaks from a position of a good, solid database, and frankly, I don't know how everyone else feels, but I think the legislature is truly divided over these issues, and these are probably the central issues for how this session's going to go.
Not only this session, but it's going to even be the Medicare, the budget issues, the education funding. Those are going to be the things that are going to be the issues that are going to be around for a long time. For those that don't know, the state of Missouri, I think this week, or maybe it was last week, enacted a program that will fundamentally eliminate Medicaid completely by 2008. And they're doing drastic cuts in their Medicaid program.
And Gary, this looks to me like it's not just posturing that we've seen, maybe we think about on some other issues. There is a genuine philosophical difference of opinion about what needs to be done in the state of Nevada to make it what it ought to be.
And if you look back, this has gone on for the last 2 or 3 sessions, if not longer. And I agree with Ray, that's going to continue for a long time now, I think. It's just a philosophical debate, is what is the state's role in providing some of these services.
I don't think that health care for the needy and the poor is one of the things that we need to debate about or discuss whether we need that. That's clearly needed. I don't know what Missouri is doing?
Missouri.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But let's get back to the rebate, because that's really the hot topic that everyone's talking about.
And I thought Carole made a really good point on that when she talked about, you have people, elected officials in the Assembly and the Senate will be running for higher offices the next time. I think this is a key thing. They cannot afford a special session. The last thing they want to do is get involved in a special session.
But the governor's not running for office again.
Correct. So
why does he want to push this money into people's pockets?
He's using that, trust me, as leverage. Yes. So, but one of the things, we talked about
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got an interesting way of rebating.
If you're going to do a rebate from the people in this building, not necessarily the guy down the street, but from the people in this building, the best way to do a rebate is to rebate it back to the people that actually voted in the last general election or the primary. There's several reasons to do that. Number one, it rewards good citizenship. Number two, those are the people that care, because those are the ones that got off their tail and voted. Number two, from a cleaning up the election standpoint, the return checklist is worth its weight in gold. Because if there's any dead people on the list, both parties are interested in who that person is.
How about giving the money back to the people who paid the money? Where the taxes came from, the property tax.
Well, I understand. No, it's not property tax.
It's sales, property, business tax, bank tax.
But it's not property tax.
Yeah, the state hardly gets any.
Well, a lot of the surplus comes from the rapid rise in property values.
The two biggest areas came from was sales and gaming.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, then you're rebating the gaming industry. And I've talked to a lot of people, especially in the smaller properties, who would be very happy to see the large increase that they had to pay rebated back to them.
Absolutely.
And again, if you're talking about on the sales tax side, since I represent the Associated General Contractors, over 30% of the sales tax stays paid by the construction industry. So
yeah, so giving a DMV rebate doesn't really, it helps them superficially, but it doesn't really help them.
The other nice part about a voter thing is there's no wealth criteria on who it takes to be a voter. You can be really poor and still be a voter, and so consequently, this whole issue of rich people have better cars and so they're going to get more money back, all of a sudden that goes away if you do it back to the voters. And if your registration database is bad, you make every one of those envelopes do not forward. And it sorts them out pretty quick.
That brings up the big problem with a rebate or mailing checks. There are processing costs and costs to do all this. why should we pay $1 million in order to give money back to people? There's got to be a way, and I don't mind giving the money back. It's the taxpayers deserve it. We got all this extra money. But figure out a way to do it without spending a bunch of money.
Well,
someone ought to tell the governor.
There is no way.
There's a sales tax holiday. Just no sales tax for a week or 2 weeks.
You know what's
Easy
really
to do.
interesting? This rebate has, at least when you get outside of Carson City, has dominated the discussion. If you look at all the issues that are being discussed, and we have some monumental issues facing the state. I mean, water and growth and what we're doing in education and everything. But you know, what's going to happen with that money has become the focal point.
And if you look like some of the letters to the editor, you see that the wide range there. From spend it on education, spend it on mental health. Yes, I want
And
it
the
back.
reason it's so big is because the governor has made it such a big issue.
Well, certainly in the last 48 hours he has. Let's talk, it's going to be a big day here at the legislature. The drug reimportation bill is coming up for hearing today. Is the pharmaceutical industry going crazy at this point, Ray?
You know, we don't have any pharmaceutical members per se in the state, and so I'm not exactly sure. Well, I'm sure they're going to come out with all their guns blazing. Supposedly there's some expert coming in from Canada that wants to talk a little bit about what the actual program is and how they do things, and I understand that my impression is that will refute some of the claims that Ms. Buckley has made on all the wonderful things on her bill. So it could be an interesting day.
I think it's a done deal. I think it's a done deal. It's gonna pass. The people want it. I could talk about it, but as a physician, I think it's gonna pass.
Really not an issue for me, but I think Ray brings up a great point. To here again, you're talking about the politics of it again, not just whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's good. Is now we're going to get into the same old battle we always get into. Is you have the Assembly leadership wants this, and now it's over in the Senate. What are you going to do there
you know
between
what?
those two?
I already get my drugs from Canada and Great Britain, and I'm saving a fortune. In some cases,
Who's cheaper, Canada or Great Britain?
It depends on the drug. It just depends on the drug. But it's insane that we're overcharging the American people so much money. And if this is just seen as a protest because the federal government still says it's illegal, that's fine. But we got to do something.
I look at it.
And I get the last word. That's it. We're out of time. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
High-tech companies demand perfect world amenities. They require clean, reliable power, state-of-the-art fiber optic communications, and clean water sources. In a perfect world, companies would have immediate access to rail and interstate freeways. There would be 4-lane expressways that shorten shipping times and provide convenient commute routes for valued employees. Well, the future is now, and it's here. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
A great show today. Thank you as always. And who's coming up next week?
Well, actually, we've got a number of really interesting interviews. You got Danny Thompson coming in, you got Bob Seal, and of course John Marvel. So we're going to talk some budget and taxes and everything else.
And rural perspective.
There you go.
Thanks for watching Nevada Newsmakers.